thegovernor.ng is a unified news platform and online webzine for various state governments in Nigeria, and specifically focusing on the business of government and governance, and highlighting, showcasing the activities as well as tracking the activities of state governors, the social transformation initiatives, their projects, reforms, policies. It is sector specific. It's the first of its kind in the Federal Republic of Nigeria that's focusing solely on the business of government. And that's the idea. The idea is what? Bring government closer to the people and the people closer to government. Let there be a harmony. Let that be. We've signed on to the open government partnership, and that's what this is all about. It's about now people getting to know what government is doing. Is about the elements of true democracy. That's financial and fiscal and financial accountability, information and communication accountability, democratic accountability, where people can actually then see what is government doing, what is our governor doing, how is he expending or how are they appropriating the resources of the state government. And also we will feature local governments. Every month we would have a publication which will showcase a specific state, though other states will be included, and it will highlight the various initiatives going on in there. We will publish the governor report, which will monthly show what each state governor is doing, and we would have the good governance report that will show what areas of good governance, who is performing, who is not. It's pro and not against. It is to showcase what governors are doing. And that's mainly about the governor as a publication. But indeed, we decided with the elections over, this is another opportunity to actually showcase specific state governors. And we're starting this particular edition. We have a special inaugural edition. And the first one, we're featuring Babajide Sanwo Olu, the governor-elect, and in a few days, to be governor of Lagos. And we're speaking to a number of people post-election. Who really is Babajide Sanwo Olu, who has won the governorship election in Lagos State? What are his plans? And we're talking about showcasing the journey from being LSDPC, MD, just 9 months ago, to becoming the governor of Lagos on May 29th, 2019, which is very interesting. And we're tracking that journey. We're tracking the most interesting campaigns seen in recent times in the history of electioneering and campaigning in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We're looking at the merger of digital and traditional media to see a candidate succeed. And actually, again, breaking the divide, the special inaugural edition comes in print edition and in video, as a video mag. And that's to bridge the technology divide for those who prefer print or those who want to watch in video. And it's going to be circulated all over Lagos, all over Nigeria. And this will go on again monthly, where we'll have monthly editions. Like I said earlier, I thank you for reading or for watching, and to relax. Enjoy the season, enjoy the moment as we begin the journey to future Nigeria from May 2019 to 2023, and see governors show us the implementation of their various agendas, and for us to reap the benefits of the democracy which we so well fought for again, and the reality of the various dreams of various governors come to pass, which was what the people voted for. Thank you.
Wow, that's quite a tedious one. If we are to go down memory lane on happenings in Nigeria before 1999, we were, as everybody knows, we were deep in the throes of militarism for a number of years, from January 1, 1984 to May 29th, 1999. That's quite a number of years if you do the arithmetic. And during that time, we were strictly under military decrees, edicts, and there was total absence of democracy. It was a rule of force by the military establishment. And given the nature of the military, it is obey the last order. Orders were issued. There was no iota or pretense to even carry along the public, because the military usually shot its way into power. There were no campaigns, no programs, no policies, no elections, nothing. So you found yourself listening to the radio and just hearing about a change of government. And once the military got there, they did everything according to their whims and caprices. And so the nation was held down and held by the jugular for those number of years. And of course, it took its toll on the development of the country, on the progress of the country, on the socio-economic and political emancipation of the country. And some of us were actually in the vortex of it all, because of the absence of democracy, there were no parliaments, no houses of assembly, no Senate or House of Reps. In short, there was no legislature. So no participatory democracy, no representatives of the people to promote democracy. So the onus fell on the press to act as the arbiter and the voice of the people, the arbiter between the people and the government, the military government. And I was an editor, for most of that period. And we had a joke then that you did not become a real editor until you had tasted detention of the authorities, of the security agencies, of the government of the day. And so in our offices, those of us who were editors then, we had a toothbrush, a face towel, a copy of your passport, and personal effects, because the military authorities could come in anytime and pick you up and throw you into detention. I had my own fair share of such experiences. And so it became an adage amongst us, press people at the time, that you are not worthy of the editorial chair until you had tasted the detention. It was quite an experience. It was harrowing experience, but it was also illuminating in the sense that it broadened our horizon. We got a lot of insight into the psychological makeup of the military and into the dynamics of, power play, power equation, and governance as well. But on a larger note, the country was strangulated, as it were. There was no freedom of speech, hardly freedom of movement, because there were certain restricted areas that you couldn't, saunter into without the repercussions, without recriminations from the authorities. So we were more or less in a cage throughout the military adventurism. And the high point of it was the annulment of the June 12 election in 1993, which was won by my publisher. And of course, naturally, some of us became thrown into the whole saga. And Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was then a senator, and he was also thrown into the whole adventure of June 12. I wouldn't want to bore you with all the details of how the annulment came, but MK Abiola, the election was conducted on June 12. Many things happened before then. We had gone through a lot of processes, the campaign, there were political programs that the then head of state, Babajide, enacted, and we went through, some were cancelled, another set of people, a lot of rigmaroling, and that led to his being labeled as Maradona because he kept shifting the goalpost. So eventually the election held on June 12th, and we were coasting home to victory. And on June 16th, there was this TAS announcement of the suspension of results and eventual cancellation of the entire election, when it was quite obvious to the whole world that MK Abiola had won because we had all the results anyway. And then we went into the struggle. We said no. That was the highest assault on the sensibilities and sensitivities of Nigerians. So we said no. And then we plunged ourselves into the struggle. That led to the formation of National Democratic Coalition, popularly known as NADECO. NADECO was the apex of the struggle, and there were various levels of it, And Bola Ahmed Tinubu also became one of the patrons of the struggle. He was a very prominent member of NADECO, and there were so many escapades, that occurred. Of course, the military reacted as usual, violently and repressively. A lot of repressive actions took place. We were all being hounded all over the place. My office was shut down for more than 2 years as the Concord newspapers, because we were in the forefront, in the vanguard of the clamor for the restoration of June 12th. And Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu played a yeoman's role in the struggle as well. At some point, he was arrested and detained at Alagon here. And some of us were operatives at that time. We used to go there, get instructions from him on how to carry on the struggle outside. And we got the petrol, they have a name, the Pengasan or something, the Association for these petrol tankers and drivers union. We got them involved, and they cooperated. There was a massive national strike, which lasted almost 7 weeks at the time, all pressing for the restoration of June 12th. And we paralyzed the country at some point. And when the military authorities couldn't take it, they bared their fangs and hounded people. People were shot, people were killed, people were hounded out. Tinubu's home was firebombed in Victoria Island there, and he was also hounded out of the country. A lot of our leading lights had to flee the country. Professor Wole Soyinka, Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, General Akinrin-Ade, a host of leading lights of NADECO had to flee the country. And some of us who were also carrying on as operatives at the time, the country also became too hot for some of us, so we also had to find our ways out of the country. And then regrouped in London at a point. And I remember vividly, General Akinrin-Ade hosted the NADECO. We used to have the NADECO meeting in one of his flats off Edgware Road in London. And every Tuesday we used to have the NADECO meeting. Myself, the late Bekor and some Kuti was also involved. And at some point, Chief John Oyegun, who later became chairman of APC, was involved. Our Commodore Dan Suleiman was the only northerner amongst us then in London. And then the late Bobonwo Sisi and a host of others, and that was the nucleus of the NADECO abroad that sought and actually sensitized the entire world about the goings-on in Nigeria and why it was important for the military to be taken off the stage. And back home, inside Nigeria itself, the late Papa Brahma Desoya led the NADECO activities at home with the man who's still alive now, Papa Chief Ayo Adebanjo, and a host of others who are late now, Chief Adekunle Ajashin, They all formed the nucleus and the apex of NADECO at home. And they also made life difficult for the Abacha military junta at the time. So these were the issues that occurred. Nigeria was practically ungovernable. We made Nigeria ungovernable for 5 solid years without firing a shot. The government was uncomfortable, and we sensitized and mobilized the entire conscience of the world against the military at home. So eventually, as Providence will have it, Abacha dropped dead in 1978, June, and quite sadly, MK Abiola also died exactly a month later, even on the eve of his release, because we were expecting him to be released. And I was the editor of his newspaper then, the Concord, and I remember that day, Dr. Doyin Abiola, his wife, who was our managing director and editor-in-chief, had called me from Abuja. She and a few of Abiola's family members had been invited the previous day to come and see MK, because nobody was allowed to see him for 4 years. And so we were all very jubilant and expectant that he would be released. So Dr. Abiola called me about 12 noon and asked me to do a draft statement for her, to tell the world that they had seen him and he was a little bit okay, and they were coming back to Lagos. I did the draft statement. Only a couple of hours later, we just saw the news flash on CNN that the man had died, under very questionable circumstances till date. And of course, spontaneous riot erupted in the whole of Lagos, and it spread to the Ibadan. The entire southwest became engulfed in demonstrations, protests, and riots and all that, And I had the very unenviable job of announcing the obituary of my own publisher as the editor of the paper. So, of course, you could imagine the well of emotions and all that. But as an editor, you want her to have a clear head in such situations. And the first thing I did was to change the masthead of the paper from green to black to signify the mourning of the establishment of our publisher. And so that ended Abacha's reign, and Abdul Salami came on board when Abacha died. And Abdul Salami, I had spoken to General Abdul Salami as head of state and demanded the release of MK Abiola, as well as the NADECO chieftains and every organization in the country and internationally were all pressing for MK Abiola's release. I personally spoke to General Abdul Salami a couple of times, because we had known each other before he became head of state, and he kept assuring me that MKO would be released. But alas, the anticlimax came and MKO died. And a couple of days after MKO's death, General Abdul Salami called me, and he was saying that he was sorry, he couldn't get him released before he died and all of that and all. But that's history now. So, and then I visited him in Aso Rock, and I told him plainly that he had to quickly vacate the seat and bring in a government of national unity, that would be peopled with those who were actually in the vanguard of the struggle for democracy and all that, all of which he agreed to. And he also agreed to release all the other various detainees, the pro-democracy, people who had been detained and all that, and even those who were on exile. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, General Akinriyade, Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, Soyinka, a whole lot of them on exile, had agreed to release all of them. I had come back home when Abacha reopened my office in 1996, so I was in the country. In any case, General Abdul Salami then brought out a program of a return to civil rule, and he addressed the nation and said his own stay will be brief, and it was actually very brief. It was barely 1 year, and then return the country to democracy. So in essence, that was, in a nutshell, what happened before democracy came on May 29th, 1999. And shortly before then, after General Abdul Salami had opened the political space for political activities, of course, parties were formed here and there. That's another whole lot of story. But parties were formed, the major ones being the Alliance for Democracy, AD, the PDP, and a host of others. And then Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu came back, after a stormy argument with the Nadeco people in London, in the US, and across Canada and all over the world. A lot of them didn't want to take part in the political activities that ensued, but Asiwaju Tinubu insisted he was coming back to take part in it. So he came back, and we joined forces together. And I remember he actually came back wanting to go to the Senate, and of course when he got back, a lot of things happened to change his mind. And I remember he was in my office, myself, Segun Babatokpe, and Tunji Bello, and himself in my office, in Concord then. And we said, look, my own view was that he had to go for the governorship because it will afford us the opportunity of coming to implement the programs and policies and the philosophy of June 12, which we were all part of, but that had been aborted, and he agreed. And then, we took on the whole challenge, and we went into the campaign and all that. He won the election after a very acrimonious primaries and highly contentious election. He won, and then we started the business of forming a transition committee and subcommittees, for conceptualizing various policies and programs for the incoming Asiwaju Tinubu government. And so the rest is history. That's what happened before 1999. I would say primarily that the main thing responsible for what you see in Lagos State today, the progress and development trajectory of Lagos today, is due to the political system that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu instituted and the enduring structures he put in place starting from 1999. I would say with all sense of modesty that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's political system is about the only one that I can see in the political firmament of Nigeria since 1999 that has been well grounded philosophically, and ideologically. If you look at the various other political systems in other parts of Nigeria, in other states and other regions of Nigeria, you have what I call an agglomeration of interests, views, groups, forming political parties. Ideally, by definition, that should be it. The political party should be an agglomeration of all of these divergent interests and all that. But the demarcation point with that of the Tinubu system is that those other ones are not grounded in any philosophical framework or ideological, perspective or perception or even inclination. They emerged largely, in my own view, as platforms to protect pecuniary interests, not necessarily platforms for altruistic purposes, for the larger interest of the public, and for the envisioning of deep-seated political structures that would usher in real progress and development, merely platforms for protecting pecuniary interests. And that has been the marked difference between the Tinubu system and those other systems. And that has been the necessary ingredient for the continuity of the Bola Tinubu system in Lagos State. Not necessarily without prejudice to the individuals that have occupied offices in Lagos. It is because of the system, the endurance of the system put in place, which then means that anybody who comes in as a driver of that system would literally have little room to maneuver, but to go forward and build on the structures that he or she meets in place. And so that continuity has largely helped the state, that is Lagos State, in forging ahead with its giant strides, developmental strides, progressive policies and implementation of, social services that seek to make life convenient and comfortable for its inhabitants. That's really the issue, the kernel of the issue, is the philosophical ground norm of the Bola Tinubu political system that has ensured continuity and the focus on the programs and policies that in totality ensure the convenience of Lagosians, and that has attracted people from all walks of life from every other state in Nigeria into Lagos, which is why today Lagos is bustling at the seams with population. Everybody is coming to Lagos because Lagos works. I will say the opposition is at liberty, to spew out inanities and mouth slogans that literally or metaphorically and figuratively mean nothing. It is just in the nature of opposition to criticize whatever it is, because they are also angling to seize power. So whether you are the best performer in the world, your opposition must seek to run you down. So I don't take such things seriously, because you also have to put this opposition and its people into proper perspective and context. What is the track record of achievement of any leading light of this opposition? What? Where? None. Practically none. Or very, very negligible. So therefore, they don't have the basis to make very intellectually rigorous criticism. If you must criticize, you must put in place viable and constructive alternatives. They're not bringing any alternatives to the table. They just say, oh, this man is a one-man rule for 20 years. Compare and contrast in other climes or in other states of Nigeria. What has been the developmental trajectory in those other states? They are all trailing behind Lagos State, which says implicitly there's something good in that so-called one-man rule for 20 years. And I now, coming to the nitty-gritty of it, I will disagree vehemently that it is a one-man rule. No. It is a system. That's why I ab initio analyzed the difference, the major difference between the Tinubu system and those other systems. Because Tinubu has put in a system that is grounded in a forward-looking, progressive, philosophical framework. It has an ideological perspective. Now, when you want to put a system in place, you have to establish the philosophy behind that system. That is the envisioning. What do you seek to achieve? Now, the methodology, how do you seek to achieve it? Right. And then the knowledge. Now, there are 3 attributes of leadership in any climb, a progressive leadership. The attributes are 1, vision. 2, knowledge. 3, the will, which is the courage. Now, you must have the vision. You must be able to envision long-term goals for your society or the milieu in which you operate. You must have the knowledge to translate the vision into reality and to chart the methodology of achieving those goals. And lastly, you must have the will, that is the courage, to push through those policies that will achieve your set goals. Now, those 3 attributes are, fortunately for Lagos State, embedded in Bola Tinubu. And the bane of the progress of Nigeria till date has been that we haven't had a leader nationally that has those 3 attributes combined in him. We've had 1 or 2 with 1 aspect of those 3 attributes or 2 aspects of the attributes, but we haven't been lucky to have one leadership with the 3 major attributes combined in him. We are lucky to have had that in Lagos. Tinubu, I have worked with him. I have known him. I have been with him in the trenches during the Nadeko days before we got into office. I know what the stuff is made of. He is a visionary. He can envision long-term goals. And I'll give you a simple example. Take the revenue of Lagos State, for instance. When we came in 1999, the IGR, the internally generated revenue of Lagos State, was 600 million a month. What we were receiving from the federal government as federal allocation to Lagos State was slightly over 1 billion. Meanwhile, the wage bill alone of the workforce of Lagos, the civil service, was about 1.6 billion. That is excluding the tertiary institutions, the judiciaries, capital expenditure, the administrative charges, and all of that. And then the man put on his thinking cap and he started crafting what we call social engineering, And by the time we were in the executive council and he brought out a memo into the exco for us to discuss about how to make sure that Lagos was put on a path of financial recovery and eventual path of financial independence. We argued for weeks on end on that policy. And he insisted that was the way to go. And we started implementing those, the mechanism that he had put in place. And I remember vividly, at a point in 2005, after we had started implementing those policies and putting the mechanisms in place, the IGR started climbing. It started climbing. And at a point in the Executive Council in 2004 or 5, he did say, quite unequivocally, he said that if we went on implementing those policies at that pace we were going, that the administration or successive administrations that would take over from us will start swimming in money. And it became prophetic. Today, the IGR of Lagos State, where it hovers. There is no state in Nigeria. That is what we call visioning. The guy is a visionary. And he's got the knowledge. And he's got the will, the courage to push through those goals. I remember even there was a particular one to demonstrate the knowledge. We wanted to embark on radical and massive infrastructural development and renewal of the urban centers of Lagos. That was when we proposed dualization of Yaba to Itire Lawansin. This Awolowo Road that you see there today, Awolowo Road was only 2 lanes. We dualized it without demolishing a single structure on Awolowo Road. That was close to 20 years ago. And till today, you don't see a single pothole on Awolowo Road. Then we embarked on Adeola Odeku there, Akin Adeshola here, and a host of others that we did. But there was no money. And he said, okay, we should go and take short-term loan and hedge against inflation. Because the way he saw things, if we didn't take that short-term loan, the way he was looking at the horizon, the financial health of Nigeria and his situation, inflation was going to rise. We would not be able to afford the materials again. But that it was better for us to hedge, take short-term loans, buy all the iron rods necessary, the cement, all the materials for all those construction, so that by the time inflation climbed higher, we would have, amassed all the materials necessary for we argued and argued. Those of us who are not financial experts, we argued against it. Even those who are finance people in the ESCO, then Wale Edun was Commissioner for Finance, Yemi Cardoso was Commissioner for Budget and Planning. We confronted Tinubu on it in the Executive Council, and he maintained his stand. We argued and argued and argued. At some point, the rest of us kept quiet. It was left to Wale Tinubu, Wale Edun, the Commissioner for Finance, who also was on our side. He took on the governor too and argued. He was wearing a suit. When the argument ensued and persisted, at some point, he removed his jacket. Wale removed his jacket. And the argument went on. Then he loosened his tie. And then the argument went on. Then he rolled up his sleeves. I remember Mrs. Kemi Nelson was also in cabinet then. Kemi Nelson now said, Wale, at this rate, you will remove your shirt. And we all laughed in the ESCO. That was how hot our Executive Council deliberations were. Because this, when you have a surfeit of professionals and technocrats, and you are also deep yourself, our Executive Council meetings were always like editorial conferences, contentious. You bring a memo, everybody will draw out the knife and punch holes in your memo. So you must have done your homework before you brought memo to the Executive Council and defend. And everybody will bring ideas. It was an intellectually robust sessions that we had. And so at the end of the day, issues were exhaustively discussed and conclusions were logically reached. And from there, policies were conceptualized, formulated, executed, tracked, and monitored. So the resultant effect is what you have in Lagos today. And that is why Lagos will keep moving ahead. So those who are mouthing one man rule, one man, they are probably quite ignorant or mentally vacuous. Number one, let us establish some parameters and fundamentals. There is no written rule anywhere that says any governor must have 2 terms. Your 2 terms will be dependent on your actions, what you have achieved in your first term. That's to enable you. It's like in the classroom or in the school system. You pass your exams, you move to the next class, and on like that. Now, if your examiners adjudge you not to have passed or made the mark, what do? You don't move to the next class. So that's just a simple analogy. But coming down to brass tacks, I believe that, quite honestly, the outgoing governor committed some fundamental errors of governance, especially in the areas of social service. Now, social service, or the rendering of social services, is the archetypal issue or focus of governance, not necessarily brick and mortar. Brick and mortar, very important. But social services are those things that have commonality across, that affect people across the broad spectrum. The rich, the poor, the aged, the young, whatever. Social services are those matters that affect the larger proportion of the population. So, when you are governing, you have to be able to achieve a delicate balance between your brick and mortar and the social services. Now, when there is a dislocation or a disequilibrium in this, of this principle, there's a problem. And that's what I would say happened. And of course, the people are also not robots. This is why we call it participatory democracy and not military regime. In the military government, I lived through the military government in Nigeria. The military boys, they will only hear their names on radio or TV as having been appointed governors or ministers or whatever, or even commissioners, right? But it's different in a democratic setting, in a civilian regime. You must be able to carry the populace along as you go along. And this brings me to one crucial factor. When we came in 1999, the Tinubu government, if you recall, my own ministry in particular, the normal nomenclature that we met on ground was Ministry of Information, Sports, Culture, blah, blah. For the first time in the history of Nigeria, we changed it. We reconfigured the ministry. It was for a reason. It wasn't a fluke. It was well thought out reasoning behind it. Because we dispensed with the appendages of sports, of culture, home, whatever, and brought in strategy. So it became Ministry of Information and Strategy. I became the first commissioner for information and strategy in Nigeria. And subsequently, other states copied. Even the private sector. Subsequently, because of the kind of acquittal that we displayed, the private sector too started putting strategy into their corporate affairs and strategy, research, development and strategy, public relations and strategy became, a watchword for information people all over the place. But many do not know the philosophical basis for bringing in that strategy into information. And I will tell you, the reason was because under the military, we were the ones that took over from the military immediately. They left. But under the military, there was no need to carry the populace along. They just dished out their policies through edicts and decrees. And woe betide you if you didn't fall in line. But in a civilian dispensation, you must woo the people. You must curry the favor of the people. You must carry the people along in your policy formulation processes and implementation processes, execution processes and monitoring processes. In short, the people must be with you. You must get the buy-in of the people you seek to administer, so that your policies and programs will be well received. You will be assured of the cooperation of the people, and you have less problems, and then you can achieve more in terms of service delivery. So therefore, if you are a governor, even if you had the loftiest ideas, you must be able to carry your people along with you. They must see reason with everything you do. And you must consult widely. The right people and widely. So if there is, like I said, a dislocation in that process, there is a problem. And that's, in my view, accounted largely for what has occurred. And the people have the right to exercise their right of choice. If they are pleased with you, oh yeah, of course you can go on ad infinitum, depending on the restrictions of the Constitution. And if they are not, and they say, and I'm sure you read one of the leaders of APC in Lagos, where that an interview in print, in one of the print newspapers, I think The Nation, he was asked the same question. And he said, no, it had nothing to do with Tinubu, that it was the people. And the people decided they wanted a change. And it is their right. There's nothing you can do about it. There was a primaries, they went out, they voted. Of course, there are influencers in any political environment all over the world. People can influence one way or the other. But the people they are influencing are not robots. If you seek to influence people against their wishes, they will just they will throw you aside and move. And I have always said, and this I have also always said to even the leader, Tinubu himself, the ability to gauge the public mood. I'm a perception manager. It's one of the ingredients of perception management. The ability to gauge the public mood. You must have emotional intelligence with which to gauge the public mood. When you are able to gauge the public mood, a wise leader, if a wise leader wants to go the right direction or to the right, and the people he's leading are clamoring to go to the left, and he has tried to persuade them to go with him to the right, and they refuse, if a smart leader will jump to that left and lead their march to the left, and thus he will retain his leadership. But where he does not have the emotional intelligence to gauge the mood of the people he's leading, and he insists on going the right when the people says they want to go to the left, he will lose his leadership. So when the issue came up and there was a groundswell of agitation for a change, what did you expect Tinubu to do? To say that no, to insist? He would lose his leadership. You have to be a smart leader. It's a normal inclination. It's a normal human inclination. It's absolutely natural. When there is a change of administration, even in your own small office, if you were to change the leadership in your office or change one manager, the people in that department will be expectant. The expectation of the new manager you put in place will rise. It won't be the same. It won't just be dull and bland and placid. No. It's a normal inclination of human beings. For instance, and then you said something about Sanwo Olu not being known. So why should this expectation be high? BRF was not known. Fashola was not known before he became governor. He was chief of staff. And as a chief of staff, he wasn't a visible part of the administration because he was handling the back end of the governor's office. He wasn't in the glare, public glare as it were. In fact, he was described variously sometimes as an unknown quantity before he became governor, before he ran for the office of... Was Ambode known by the public before he ran for office? No. So it's the same thing. Ambode was in the civil service. He was an accountant general before he retired. And I think he went into his private business. He wasn't in the public glare. Even when he was in the civil service, he was the back end. As an accountant general, he wasn't visible. So It's the same thing. In fact, I think Sanwo Olu even has a relative edge more than the two of them, more than Ambode and Fashola, because those two were relatively unknown before they ran for office. But Jide Sanwo Olu is relatively known, or was relatively known before he ran for office. Why? Because he had held visible government positions, public positions, visible public positions. He had been commissioner for commerce, commissioner for budget, commissioner for establishment. He had dealt directly with the public. He had had to appear in the media. He had to propagate the policies of his ministry at various times. He's had to address, so he, relatively speaking, was much more known publicly than even those other two. So it is natural for the people or the people's expectation to rise when there is a change or when there is a transition from one government to the other. In fact, let's even assume it's the same government. The expectations will still rise. Let's assume it's the same person that is coming in. As long as one administration is ending, another one is starting, people's expectations will naturally rise. And in this instance, like I said, because of the immediate experience in terms of the state of social services in Lagos, it is also natural for the people to expect Sanwo Olu to come and perform magic in the areas of those social services that they perceive had not been at par, with their expectations. And you can name some of them. I want to wish Babajide Sanwo Olu a lot of goodwill, heavy dose of goodwill, and good luck, because he needs it. Governing a heterogeneous society like Lagos is not a tea party. I've had the privilege of being, part of it, and I've seen and given my proximity to the dynamics of Lagos power play since I left school. It's not a tea party, but again, like I said, is well qualified, is mentally equipped, is socially and emotionally stable for it, and he has the knowledge, the intellectual capacity, and the people skills, and above all, humility to see him through. And his deputy is also quite knowledgeable, humble, and all that. So they share a lot of attributes. So I think it's a very fantastic combination, and I think Lagos State is quite lucky to have this team coming in. So I wish Sanwo Olu, success in all his endeavors, and I would enjoin Lagosians to give him maximum cooperation so that he and his team can take Lagos to the land of El Dorado, which is all our objective.
Well, thank you very much. It's really not a few months now. I was MD of Lagos, the LSTPC. I think I resigned end of August, early September. Right, so yeah, it's been about 9 months now, right, and it's been some sort of an interesting journey. At some point, it seems roller coaster, but one was able to very well stabilize, all of the expectations, my expectations of it. It's been an eye-opening journey, right from you being a candidate, you aspiring to be the governor, you being an aspirant, to a candidate and going through all of the turbulent campaign processes, going around the 20 local government and 37 LCDA, having several meetings, meeting all levels of stakeholders, right? And pretty much selling your campaign material, selling your campaign programs to everyone, letting them understand, what are the different things you are about and the things you're bringing, right? And all of that journey, debates, interviews, meetings, coming down to the proper election itself, and a postponement of an election day, the final election itself, all of the expectations of results coming out, and finally, you being declared winner of the election. And post-election fever, how also we've handled our transition in the last 6 weeks or so now. And it's been pretty interesting. It's been very revealing. It's been very engaging. But we've also created a lot of positive journey out of it. So I will summarize by saying that it's been a journey that God has helped me personally pull through. It's been a journey that I have received a lot of support from a lot of people, from the entire leadership of the party, right, to the teeming population in Lagos, to my friends, my family, right, and to me in particular, understanding and appreciating, what all the journey, is turning out to be. But I imagine that what is ahead is certainly even much more than what is behind us. So we just need to forward look it and expect that a lot more greater and mightier things are ahead of us. You said when my candidate was announced, it wasn't announced. I came out, and a process. We had a process, in the party, So the emergence of the flag bearer of the party, sort of like through a sense of belief in what the party was trying to achieve, which was given power to the teeming party flag bearers at that time. So it wasn't such a very difficult call. It was just that a lot of people probably did not have an idea of my previous experience in governance, right? So it wasn't turbulent, right? It was something that I was certain about, right? But I had a lot of support coming out from that, which for me was humbling, right? And moving from there, we believed that we needed to convince Lagosians. We didn't ever believe or imagine that victory was a done deal. No, we needed to roll up our sleeves and get to speak to every Lagosian, every stakeholder that truly wants to hear us, all the nooks and crannies of the state, visiting almost every part that we can identify, right? And imagining that we communicated well, we sold our programs well, and we run a campaign that people have said that they've never seen anything like that in the whole political environment of the country before, right? So that was what we have done, right? And if you've worked so very hard like that, and you get a result or you get a victory at the end of the day, well, I think you just need to thank God for that and thank the people that have supported you, throughout that whole journey. I would rely on what those 50 people have said about me. It will be unfair for me, being the same judge in my own court. Let it be what they have said about me that will hold forth, not what I will say about myself, right? Let my work, let it speak for what I truly, really believe I'm up to and what God has granted me. So let it be a surprise to me. Let me also sit back and get to hear what those 50 people or so that you said you've interviewed, what they've said about me. And I'm sure it will be very refreshing for me personally to hear what they've all said.
Let me first of all say that I'm not here to flatter him. Anything I say here is the way it actually is. And that's the way I feel about him. I worked with Babajide Sanwo Olu for roughly 4 years in the banking industry. He was a treasurer at a point, and then later on he became the general manager for investment banking. In all these years, he was assigned very sensitive responsibilities and in very sensitive positions. Positions that could only be held by someone that you trust, someone that has character and integrity. He was in Treasury Department, the life wire of any bank. You could not just pick anybody from the street. You have to put somebody you trust, somebody who's reliable and who has competence. And Jide was a thoroughbred professional. I was quite impressed with him because of the way he took his job. He took his job seriously. In the course of the years, we worked together as Treasury. And if you speak to any bank MD, he will tell you that the closest relationship he has with any of his staff will be first his treasury manager and second his foreign exchange manager. Jide and I had close relationship. We worked together as a team. I respect his level of judgment, his decision-making capability, and his competence level. And that's why I didn't hesitate when I was appointed deputy governor to request him to come along with me, because I needed somebody at that level who I could trust to work with me going into a new job. So in the public sector, he creditably delivered himself. I didn't have any problem with him whatsoever. In the private sector. In the public sector, we just practically continued where we left. He was at first my advisor, and he advised very well. We worked together in several assignments given to us by the governor, and I didn't have any reason to complain about him at all. At a point in time, I felt that he needed higher responsibility, so I personally approached the governor to humbly and kindly elevate him to the level of a cabinet rank special advisor, and the governor obliged. And from then onward, he worked directly with the governor. But throughout our tenure, he was a very, very good public officer, and I really didn't have any reason to complain about his performance. So I believe that he discharged himself creditably well. Well, 20 years of Lagos State has been years of progress and tremendous development. There's no doubt about it. If you grow up in Lagos or you're born in Lagos, you will see the marked difference between then and now. There's been giant strides. This has happened basically because there has been continuity in governance. The foundation was laid properly by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We actually had a blueprint for development of Lagos, which was the Eyingbeti program that was held every year between 1999 and I think about 2009 or 2010 before it was stopped. So this really formed the bedrock of developmental efforts by Lagos State. What has changed between then and now is the tremendous influx of people into Lagos. The multitude, the population has grown tremendously, in fact, geometrically beyond anybody's imagination. So the state is being so burdensome under a weight of demands by its populace that it could not meet. Revenue growth has not been able to match up with developmental needs of the state. So this has created a lot of problems. The second issue is the leapfrogging technology. The state has not been able to keep up with the technology advancement of the rest of the world. And one of the reasons behind this is also because of a large influx of people that's coming to Lagos. It's extremely very difficult to cope with the challenges of environment, housing, transportation, congestion, education and healthcare, providing education and healthcare for the populace. These are the challenges that incoming Governor Babajide Sanwo Olu will meet. However, if you follow his campaign very well, he has the campaign slogan called theme, which spelled out many of these areas that I've mentioned. And because he's very, very well prepared to meet these challenges, because he has walked through the system, he knows that every year, if we don't leapfrog, these problems will catch up with us, and it'll be more difficult to overcome. So I think he's very much ready. I've had several discussions with him. I've listened to him when he was campaigning. I've had him on TV and radio, and I know that he's ready to face these issues frontally, particularly the issue of transportation, the gridlock Lagosians face every day, the environmental challenges that Lagos face, the problem of education, the large influx and the young population, particularly youth employment, and creating job opportunities for them. I'm sure he's very much aware of all this, and is ready, very much ready to cope. So I think that 20 years to date, a lot has changed. Developmentally, Lagos has grown. Challenges have also multiplied. And the technology advancement the world has experienced is very much around in Lagos. But the state has not really caught up with that advancement. And Babajide Sanwo Olu, who is a child of technology, he grew up in the midst of technology, his entire career has been along that line. I'm sure he's ready to take up the mantle of leadership and do things that will make Lagos be at par with the rest of the world. Well, my advice is very simple. He should remain true to himself. Don't allow the office to change him. He should stay focused, and he should stay in the place of prayers at all times.
My name is Mrs. Caroline Odo. I worked with Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation. I retired just 2017.
Yes, my name is Tunde Falashe. I'm the MD of Braincraft. We're a consulting firm. And I'm here because I'm also a former classmate of our governor-elect for Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo Olu.
My name is Engineer Jude Opala, and I'm the MD of an engineering company called Cliche Limited. We are into civil engineering, precision engineering, and metal component production.
My name is Adegoke Omotola. I'm the CEO of First Degree Consulting, management consulting firm.
I'm Mrs. Omolara Ogunkoya.
Okay, my name is Mr. Bolade Daranijo.
Yes, my name is Babajide Benson. I'm a member of the Federal House of Reps. I represent the finest constituency in Lagos State, Ikorodu Federal Constituency.
Well, we happen to be classmates in when we were in Unilag doing our executive MBA. That was 1998. He was doing his finance, MBA specializing in finance, while I was doing my MBA specializing in management, general management.
He's my friend.
He's a long-time friend. We've been friends for about 30 years.
He's been a great mentor and a big brother. I've known him for a couple of years now. I've always liked his, I've always loved his antecedents, his pedigree. He comes with a lot of work experience. He's worked in the private sector, he's worked in the public sector. And I remember I can't remember his name now, the MD of McKinsey, the big consultancy firm. He said the best CEOs now in the world are people who have tri-sector experience. So Mr. Jide Sanwo Olu comes with a lot of that. He's worked in the private sector, public sector, and he's done some social work. So he's somebody I also look up to. He exudes wisdom, he exudes capacity, and I'm sure he's bringing something fresh and new to Lagos State.
Babajide was my classmate, MBA, 1998-2000 at Dele Alake. We did the course together for about 2 years, and we graduated together. That was how I got to know him.
He's a friend and he's also a brother. Well, we're actually classmates in an MBA school, and from what I can recollect, even while we were in class, he was a stickler for time. He was also a leader, and he was also someone who had the ability to pull people together. He led by, in terms of ideas, was quite knowledgeable, and I have excellent memories. And even now, I mean, from what I can see, I strongly believe that Lagosians should be excited, and expectant. There is really going to be a lot of transformation, and it's going to lead by example. Yes, that I know. Well, I've known him for about 20 years.
Friend of almost 30 years.
Yeah, like I said, he was very intelligent. And I know he's going to, showcase that intelligence in these 4 years. I expect him to be more organized. I expect him to be more focused. I expect him to carry everybody along. And I know Lagos is such a place that if you're not focused, you may not be able to, do what you're supposed to do. We all live in Lagos. But I know with his education, with his experience, with his intelligence, he's going to do wonders for Lagos State. That I know.
I think it would be almost all the C's that I mentioned. BOS doesn't strike me as a person who's going to rush and then assess the consequences of those actions later. His actions are going to be quite deliberate. They're going to be quite considered. It bears mentioning that on one of our group chats, one of the things we saw a couple of weeks ago was BOS preparing himself, for this new role, attending a leadership class at the Harvard School of Leadership. So it speaks to the type of person he is, right? I know that BOS will have legacy in mind. This is not a small mantle he's taken on, but I know that he's not coming there to enjoy a role. I know he's coming there to deliver a role. And I think Lagosians therefore should look out and expect a person who has legacy in mind, which is one of the things that you look forward to in the great leaders of today.
I think to start with, I tell Lagosians that they're going to expect a total change in governance in Lagos State. Expect new ideas, expect surprises, pleasant surprises, because Jide will always like to keep his good ideas within his chest and throw them out when you least expect that. But at the end of all, you come out very, very surprised, positively surprised and excited. So we should expect positive change. We should expect dynamism in governance. We should also expect some seriousness. Seriousness in the sense that he's going to bring the clarity he has in first assignment in the financial industry. Is going to bring that to the way things are interpreted in Lagos State. So I tell Lagosians that they're very, very lucky to have Jide, and they should expect that there will be a total change in the way things are done, and we are going to see seamless approach to governance.
Well, I think the next 4 years is going to be quite interesting. The programs and initiatives of His Excellency, I believe they will have a human face, and they will also have a sort of balance in terms of reaching out to every segment of Lagosians. I mean, whether it's business, whether it's a market woman, whether it's professionals, whether, so I believe that there's going to be a lot of dynamism, and from the get-go. So Lagosians should be excited, they should be expectant, and at the end of the 4 years, I believe that there'll be so much to show for he's been in the office, and I believe that he'll be able to leave a legacy that will endure.
Well, if you look at the way the campaign was carried out, you'll see that it's a whole new dimension. It's not, the usual, everybody's going to stadium, the crowd is following them, and then, they just make some noise and retire back to their homes. This one, he tried to touch all the groups, all the professional groups, all the local groups, the yaologers, the bankers, the Igbo traders. It's like he touched everywhere. And that's why we saw that kind of result, that he had a landslide victory.
Lagosians will expect a very successful time, a very brilliant time, and I think he will be the best that Lagos has ever had.
Well, I know that a lot have been done on the infrastructure. There are still more to be done on the infrastructure. Then that's one. Infrastructure which may include road network. Because we all live in Lagos, you know what we're going through. So he should focus on that. I know there may be some resistance, but if you focus on infrastructure, on road network, it's going to perform wonders.
Yes, I've said it, that he's a trisector athlete. A trisector athlete is somebody who can view things from 3 lenses or 3 dimensions. So I think he has the capacity. He's worked, if you look at his history, he's worked in, I think he worked in a couple of banks. He was treasurer. He's worked in the critical sectors of the public space. He was commissioner for budget and planning, establishment, and was MD of LSDPC. So that gives him the requisite skill and tools to be able to add value to what he's met on the ground.
Honestly, when I heard that he came out as a governor, I was so shocked myself, because in a class, though he was very intelligent, but he was like an introvert on the quiet side. So I was so shocked when I learned that he's going to be contest for a governorship. I was just, wow. But I know during that period, his brain, he's intelligent. He doesn't look for trouble. He's so quiet. So not knowing that, I don't know what to say. He was a smooth operator because he was very intelligent. In fact, most of the things we do at times, he solves problems for us.
When I heard that BOS, as we know him, had won this election, I was really quite excited because I had the privilege of being his classmate for 18 months in the MBA class at University of Lagos. And he has always impressed me with certain qualities that he brings to bear. If I was to summarize those, I would say that in class, BOS was always very composed. He was always very calm. He was also very considered in terms of his contributions. So he was a man of good contributions, and they were also very deliberate considerations. So he was somebody that stood out for being very deliberate in his thinking. So the class actually did good by having BOS as a member of the class. And it's a bit of a paradox because it's almost from one legacy to another. I was the first class governor of that class, and to then go on to hear that he's now becoming the governor of the biggest and perhaps the most considered state in Nigeria, I think does him an honor. And of course, it also does we, his classmates, an honor as having been part of what we hope is the shaping of BOS.
It was jubilation all the way. Like you know, I'm the chairman of the alumni. And the first thing we did was we celebrated him in absentia, first of all. Okay, and after celebrating him, of course, reaching him to tell him that we're so happy to have him in that position was very, very easy. It was a very nice moment. It was a thing of pride to most of us that one of ours has been picked for such a sensitive and important position. So it was a very big excitement for all of us.
Well, I was a bit surprised because I didn't see him as someone who was a politician. But I think it's a good thing. The more of its kind that we have in the space, it will encourage others, who are just still contemplating to come and add value. And Nigerians are a bit shy. I mean, professionals are a bit shy when it comes to politics. But I believe that the time has come, particularly now, for professionals to come into political space and bring to bear their professional experience so that Nigerians can benefit, long term.
I was really excited. I knew that the energy he put into banking and even the work he started with Lagos State, I know that Lagos State will be the greatest beneficiary of his agility and his intelligence and his uprightness. To a very large extent, I'll tell you, he's a very upright person.
I was extremely surprised because I did not expect that, because I didn't know what the process is, but I thought that for anyone to have looked to choose someone such as that, there must have been a very deep thoughts, as in his qualities are inbuilt, and he's always striving to develop himself. He's always developed himself to a point where I thought, wow, if Lagos ever got a guy like this, it would be bliss for Lagos.
Oh, I was extremely happy because fortunately, LSDPC breeds super intelligent people, which I am one. I used to be the company secretary, legal advisor of LSDPC before he assumed office as the MD. So anybody that comes out of that institution, that establishment, comes with a rich pedigree of experience and capacity to change things positively.
I think personally, I think it would just quite simply be, the biggest thing perhaps would be the quality of life. And when I say the quality of life, I cheat in a way, since you said one thing, but quality of life allows me to speak about a variety of things. We do know that Lagos probably is the envy of all the states, but this does not hide some opportunities that people like BOS will be able to address. We start from the seemingly mundane. What people are talking about at the moment is almost a distraction. In a megacity like Lagos, we shouldn't be talking about roads and potholes and the like. I know these are things that, with considered leadership, are likely to be a thing of the past, and then we can focus on the things that actually touch the common man on the street. Ease of doing business, quality of life, the comfort of life. When you go home to your home, your haven, are you proud of the fact that your home is in Lagos State because of the things that your governor has brought to bear for you? I think with BOS, we can expect to see these things brought to bear. Power supply. Now, this might be a federal thing, but then a state governor also has his contributions in terms of some of the directions that those take. Transport. We're already seeing some steps in Lagos State, no doubt. We expect these to get even more deliberate and touch the lives of people who count, the real Lagosians who are making Lagos the vibrant city that it is. So I wouldn't choose one thing. I would offer BOS a basket, because he's capable. He has been tempered by the right type of fires. He has gone through the institutions and the work experiences, banking, public service. So this is a time for a leader like BOS to step forward and deliver, what Lagos is really looking for. And I have every confidence that we will be seeing exciting things, lasting things, sustainable things coming from BOS.
Electricity. He has worked with former Governor Fashola, who is the minister in charge of power now. And I know that he knows what Lagosians need. And he's going to use that his relationship to let Lagosians benefit immensely.
A very amiable guy. When we were in school, we used to look up to him as someone very, there are some of us that are very scattered. You know what I mean? You're coming late, you're looking for seats here and there, but you come in and this gentleman will always be there to make sure he takes his notes, makes his submission in time, and everybody was looking up to him to say, oh, I want to do my work like Jide. He is just an embodiment of what it takes to be a total manager. And if you're looking for who should take care of Lagos State, that I think we got the right person. When we were in school, we used to look at him as somebody that has a very bright future, in the sense that we're looking at him like somebody that was so together that he could hold very sensitive positions and get things working. And we are very glad. In fact, that's why we are celebrating him today. Very glad that he didn't disappoint any of us.
Mr. Sanwo Olu, he's a calm, focused, intelligent gentleman. Regarding Lagos, I think Lagos has got the best that they would ever get, because this is someone who is calm and does not agitate even under pressure. His demeanor might show that he listens to everybody. He will take all the information that 1,000 people have, absorb it, digest it, and bring out the best of it.
He's a go-getter. And nothing stops him from getting what he wants to get if he believes in it. That's the impression I've always had of him since our very early money market days. And the Money Market Association of Nigeria is an association of treasurers in those days when we had about 89 banks. And among those people, you'll find people that would not keep their words. And the motto of the money market is, your word is your bond. So for a lot of us that know that integrity matters, we were really able to get along a lot. Even when the banks had problems, people like Jide and a handful of others, we were still together. Because even though the banks had problems, we, the treasurers, knew that we had a relationship that would even transcend the banks. So that was the relationship we had those days.
Of course, the relationship continued. As together as you, I keep using the word together, as complete as he was a down-to-earth person, keeping in touch with all his old folks. The relationship continued because while he was also working in the past government in Lagos State, we were keeping in touch. He was someone that could open his door to you at any time, so long as you're coming with positive ideas. So he was always, because he knew how we all toiled together to bring out results in our academic works, he was looking forward to meeting his old friends and tapping ideas, gathering ideas from them. So it continued up to this very moment, and that's why you could call upon him this very moment, and he would, very easily come and share quiet time with his friends.
We, as his classmates, we have to pray for him, because Lagos State is not a state anybody can rule anyhow. He can easily be distracted. My advice to him is that he should be hard focused as he has been. If he does, he's going to be able to do wonders and transform Lagos from what it is now. There are too many jobs to be done in Lagos State. And if you're somebody as a governor, you're not focused, you don't have vision, you may not be able to achieve what you're supposed to achieve.
I'm glad to be here. As I said, it's been a journey. I last saw BOS 20 years ago. Yes. From the pictures I see of him, he's looking even younger, perhaps, than when we last saw. But I'm really proud of him. As I said earlier on, I used to be the class governor. Now I stand behind him as he becomes my governor. So I look forward to his time.
My closing remark is one to wish him well, pray for him also, as we have been praying for him, and also looking forward to, in fact, I'm full of expectation, looking forward to the energy he's going to unleash on Lagos State. So that's my prayer for him. I also wish him, I wish that he enjoys this position, because in everything, everybody should enjoy whatever he finds himself doing or herself doing.
I just wish him well. I wish him well in office. And I also trust that God will give him the grace to carry the responsibility, such a huge responsibility. And our prayers will always be with him to excel and do well in the office.
Well, I know that he has made a lot of promises to a lot of people. I just want to assure them that he's a man of his words, and that in the fullness of time, they would know who he is and they will appreciate him even more.
I just wish him a very successful tenure, and I pray that the Lord will be with him throughout his time.
Yes, I'm happy that he's our #1 citizen in Lagos. I know he's going to add value. I know he's going to ensure that the GDP of Lagos increases and improves. And I'm sure he's going to put Lagos in the pride of place of world smart cities.
Well, I mean, it will be like taking the bag out of the, cat out of a bag, right? Let it be, an opportunity that all Lagosians will hear at once, at the same day, at the same announcement. The first 100 days will certainly be a time where we believe we can solve issues that we consider low-hanging, issues that we consider things that we can quickly really resolve. The first 100 days will be time where we need to reflect and bring about clear policy direction on how we want to run. The first 100 days also will see things around, all of the appointments that we need to have, all of the various square holes and square pegs that we need to put together. Those are some of the things that will happen. But as into what I will do on day 3 and day 17 and day 29 and day 66, I would want to have on a national TV talk to Lagosians about that. And let's have, a clear-cut timeline. It's not only about me. It certainly will be about a team, right? I'm not in there yet. I have a fair idea of what it's all about. I have a wider understanding of what it's all about, But definitively, we know that in the first 3 months or thereabout, we need to just resolve some certain issues that are critical to Lagosians in traffic management, policies around health, on education, all of the programs we will have around transportation, all of the policies we need to design, right, to evolve a growing economy and a megacity economy, like Lagos. Those are kind of the things that you will see, right? And the ones that we believe, working with the public sector, working with the whole organs of government, that will action and deliver. We will spell it out once we're coming.